So there's something that's very true that I've kind of noticed while I've been around is that, like I said, Republicans seem to be very good at messaging, less good at governing. Democrats are kind of the opposite, so what we're doing is I think the Democrats kind of waited too late, because by the time their message was already out there and dominating, now we're on the defense having to do a counter message to rehumanize this group of people that have become these political pawns to the Republicans.
Alrighty, welcome in. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, I'm good. And I know we need to talk about our gracious sponsors at Wind Creek, but I just want to drop real quick that I had an interesting night last night watching former President George W. Bush at a fundraising event sponsored by my favorite AIDS education and AIDS prevention medical organization, Thrive Alabama.
George W. Bush seems like an interesting choice for that. For that particular topic.
You make an excellent point. He was an interesting choice, but I think the logic was his work. One of the few things that many of us agreed with him on during his tenure was his commitment to trying to reduce and eliminate the spread of AIDS in Africa. And so I think that had a lot to do with, Thrive selecting him, along with the fact that obviously if you're going to raise money in a town like Huntsville, pro-military, still Republican-leaning town, bringing somebody like him in is kind of almost a guarantee you're going to get some major sponsors, which they had. So
right. Well, good deal. So I'm assuming the event was a success then, and that they were able to raise a good deal of money.
I think it was. I don't know how much they were able to raise, but they had a real healthy slate of sponsors, and there were about at least 800 of us there in the room, based on my estimation. Yeah. And so I think it was a success. The CEO, Mary Elizabeth Marr, certainly seemed pleased after the event when we talked with her. So yeah, it was a good deal. It was a good event.
Good deal. Yeah, you mentioned we do always at this time talk about our fine sponsors, Wind Creek Entertainment, who sponsored this thing. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. They're our sponsors, and we appreciate them for what they do for us. And listen, y'all should go check them out. They run 3 great resorts. I should say, in the state of Alabama, Atmore, Wetumpka, and Montgomery. They have some hotels and stuff all around the state, and some other casinos and stuff all around the country, and on some island destinations if you choose to go to Aruba. And y'all should go to the website, Wind Creek Entertainment, check them out, make you a reservation. Go, look, this is a perfect time. This week right here is a perfect time for you to do this. You don't have to go this week, but go to the website. Purchase you a gift certificate to take your wife, take your loved ones, take whoever you want to take down to the resort in Atmore or Wetumpka. Get a nice weekend out of the deal. A couple of nights. Go to the spa. Go to the fire. Listen. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the key to success here. Go and do it. You will not regret it. You'll both enjoy it. It'll be a fun time and something you talk about for a long time. Trust me on that. All right, listen. Let's. We've got Neil Rafferty coming up in just a few minutes to talk about the "What Is a Woman" Act, which I've got to give Bill Britt credit over at APR because he's asked a very pertinent question. I think that someone needs to ask, and that is, should it be "Who is a woman"? If we're going to ask the question, shouldn't it be who is a woman? If we're this is our intent, right?
Right.
But listen, it's by far, I shouldn't say by far. It's a pretty dumb bill, and a pretty mean-spirited bill, and one that I think when we talk to Neil that we will see there's a reason why this is the third go around at this thing, because it's not what it seems to be. They keep telling you, it's simple. There's just 2 genders, no problem, 2 genders. And then they've got all these exceptions within the bill that make it
Right.
very obvious that the biology as it is, a bit more complicated than that. And so, so we'll talk to him about that. There's some other things that have been going on in the legislature as well. And, there's one, though, I think that hits, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I think you know Rex Reynolds. Don't you
Oh,
know
yeah.
Rex?
I know Rex. Yeah.
Rex Reynolds has a bill. Have you seen this bill? Have you seen his police bill?
No, I don't think so. No.
It is a bill that significantly expands qualified immunity for police officers.
Well, I've read about it. Yes. Yes. Okay.
It is an atrocious bill. All right. Now, I have heard word that Rex took this bill from the governor's office that did not necessarily read it, but was told what it was going to be, and that it is something different than that, and he is currently working to change it. That said, I don't know how someone representing an area that includes the city of Huntsville could possibly bring a bill that somewhat expands the protections under the law that police officers currently hold. Okay, look, you say that and people are like, "What? We're police officers? Don't you want to protect police officers?" They are already protected. There is no hole in this. Okay, there's no hole for police officers here. They already have qualified immunity. This just expands it. The bill that he currently has that has been filed essentially makes it impossible to either sue or criminally prosecute a police officer. No matter, the guy would have to be essentially standing in front of a camera shooting somebody in cold blood before that you could prosecute him for something, or stealing money that they find or whatever. It would have to be so obvious and so egregious that there would be no chance that there could be any other verdict out of this thing. And even still, it would delay that prosecution for years, probably more than a decade, because of the way the thing is structured. And look, I'm going to admit something.
Okay.
I like cops. Okay. I like good cops. I like good cops. I like good detectives. I like good, police administrators. I do. I like. There are many who I consider friends. Derek Cunningham, we've had on this show, is a good friend of mine. I like him a lot. I think he is a fantastic human being. I think he cares. I think he and I probably disagree a little bit on some things, but you know what? I know that he cares, and I know he wants to do the right thing. And those kinds of people are the people that I call when things are going bad. And they come and help, and I love that. And I want them to be protected. I want them to have. That's why I hate this stupid, concealed carry thing that allows anybody to carry weapons everywhere, and the fact that we can't get rid of bump stocks and Glock switches and everything else, because it makes them less safe out there.
Right.
But there shouldn't be a lesser standard for behavior for police officers.
Right.
There shouldn't be a lesser standard.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, because like you, I love a good cop, and I have great disdain for cops that are not doing the right thing, and for systems that cover up for cops that are not doing the right thing.
Yes.
But do you think that perhaps this bill is some attempt to mitigate the damage or the ire of law enforcement as it relates to these other bills? Because clearly, conservative Republicans running our state have not been on the side of police officers when it comes to things that, as you indicated, threaten their lives. So maybe
it could be.
So maybe this is some kind of a mulligan, some kind of a make good.
Yeah, it could be. It could be something, an olive branch to those guys. But it just, it bothers me. First of all, it bothers me that any police officer would want this. Okay, and look, I don't want I don't want police officers to be subject to petty, ridiculous lawsuits and to
Right.
be, constantly held, up in court on things. And I know that they face a lot of allegations at times from people that are just basically untrue. People are unhappy that they got pulled over, or that they got stopped, or that they were, that they got arrested for whatever. And they remember the situation one way in their minds, and the police officers remember it one way in theirs. And that's why I think body cameras are so important.
Yep.
And a solid police review board with citizens on it is also very important. And so I understand that. I get it. I do. And I think there should be some leeway before a complaint is filed, that it goes through a process in which the police officer is, like the rest of us, given the benefit of innocent until proven guilty, and all of that. All right, I'm fine with all that. And I also know that they are in a job where it requires them to carry a firearm, and often to use that firearm in the defense of themselves, and the defense of their fellow police officers, and the defense of regular citizens. Okay, I got all that. I get all of that. And I know it is an incredibly hard job as well.
Yeah.
But man, you can't walk into somebody's house and shoot them with a shotgun and get away with it.
Nope.
And that happened in Huntsville. Okay?
Nope.
You can't go and hide.
You're talking about that infamous case where, to be clear, in case people have forgotten, there were 2 law enforcement officers already present on the scene trying to talk a man down, not from shooting them, but for shooting himself. And he didn't even have a firearm. He had a flare gun pointing it at his own head. And then this cowboy cop comes in and decides, and I say cowboy, not only was he a cowboy, Josh, he was basically a rookie, especially compared to the 2 cops who were already there.
Yep.
He comes in and he makes a unilateral decision in less than, I think, 15 seconds to kill the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shot him dead. Now, in addition to that, you can also go out and hide in somebody's front yard, spring out when they come out, and surprise the hell out of them and shoot them dead in their front yard. That happened in Decatur right now. That's what's going on over in Decatur. And somebody has to be held accountable for those things. Just as we had Jacob Ladner on last week, and he talked about, 3 guys have already been fired for their role in this thing, and for what they did. And those sorts I covered one in Montgomery where there's a guy that Steve Marshall let out of jail, a cop that he let out of jail for killing Greg Gunn in Montgomery, that he admitted during a police interview after the shooting that he had no probable cause to stop him. He had no probable cause to chase him. He had no probable cause to shoot him. And, and so and he shot him right in his own, steps from his own front door, as the guy who had run away from him and was banging on his neighbor's door to try to get in there, and then tried to run. And the jury heard everything. This went to a trial. Jury heard everything, and it's still he still let this man out. Okay, and so that's what we're already dealing with.
Right.
Okay, and it took 6 years to get him into jail to serve the sentence that he was imposed on him, and he still didn't serve it all. And this bill from Rex Reynolds puts the immunity. It guarantees an immunity hearing for all officers, and it pauses the legal process while it happens. So let me tell you what that means. All right. So any case like this, there's going to be a million motions filed and things like that before this thing ever gets to trial, and not to mention the backlog of cases that are already present. All right, and you're going to have judges recusing themselves left and right, and so it's going to be a lengthy thing, no matter what happens with any cop going on trial. So we're talking. Let's be generous and say this thing gets to trial in 2 years. All right, that's probably 2 years from the incident. It gets to trial. All right. Then they file for the immunity hearing immediately. And the immunity hearing pauses that trial. And then they have essentially a case to determine whether or not that cop should have immunity. That has to be played out and the immunity decision made. Then, still paused, that can be appealed to the appeals court, then up to the Supreme Court. So you're talking about, I would say at a minimum 5 years.
Justice delayed by definition.
Yeah. So you're talking about now we're at 7 years and we haven't even started the trial. And so we send it back, and then we have to get back on a docket somewhere and get the trial started. And so we're talking about 10 years or so before, and then in some cases, the officer is allowed to remain out of prison. I know it's happened in both these others, as they appeal the decisions.
Right.
And so we're still haven't served anything, and we're still going through the appeals process, and our courts have been very, very slow to take these things up and allow these officers to hang out with their families and friends, and in some cases remain on the payrolls while these things are being appealed and things are running up the chain. Look, it's a ludicrous idea. Okay, it's a ludicrous notion that we need to change this.
Right. So real quickly, Rex Reynolds was the police chief here in Huntsville for a number of years, and so there, I think I would assume that on some level, this is why this bill has landed in his lap to shepherd it for the governor. Rex is also a smart guy. So I would like to think, as you said earlier, that maybe he's going to try to tweak this. I certainly hope that he thinks about the case in Huntsville that you referenced, because in that particular case, the prosecutor was clear, the grand jury was clear, the jury that initially convicted that former police officer was clear that this man had committed a severe crime against a citizen. So I hope Rex will factor those things in as he does whatever tweaking he's going to do.
Yeah, I do as well. I think this is going to cause him some future trouble. I do. I think that he is in a town that is changing rapidly, and in an electorate that is changing rapidly, and it didn't even have to change all that much on this particular topic. Because I'm going to say I would like to talk to an attorney about this, but I'm not sure, given that the appeal still exists for the officer in Huntsville, is still hanging around out there. If they change this law, I'm not sure, what that does to that case.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And so if that were to be a portion of this, then man, I don't know. And so, but I do think it'll cause him some problems. Because it's unnecessary. All right. And look, everybody, back to the blue and all that, I guess, we're back in the blue unless they're standing in front of the Capitol trying to prevent a mob from getting in. But, I'm all for it. I'm all for back in the blue, and I'll support any good cop out there. Okay. I will. I'll back them up all the way and write wonderful things about them. Matter of fact, I have written wonderful things about police officers and the work that they've done and the troubles that they've faced. And I've helped out a lot of guys who have faced some real BS, both within a department and from people outside of a department, with things that have been going on around them. And I was happy to do it. Because my thinking was, I'm helping out a person that's helping out the community.
And I think that's where most people are. I think most people will tell you they just want good policing. They don't have a problem with policing until it's bad, until some cop goes rogue or a group of cops go rogue. And then you have a system that backs that up. When you have crazy things that happen, like the black sites that they had in Chicago and maybe even other cities, where cops would act in an extra legal way to prevent somebody from getting access to an attorney, where cops are shooting people in the back when the people are running away from them. That's the kind of stuff we have problems with, not police officers that are doing their job in a righteous way.
Yeah, no, we don't. And, I think there are people who do. And of course, the folks like Fox and Newsmax and some other ones, they always highlight those people. But it just and the defund the police thing didn't help a whole lot in making this case, because people want to make you out to be anti-police and things, even when you're just asking for reasonable stuff. But that's all anybody wants. That's all I've ever wanted was I just want you to follow the laws. I want you to adhere to the rules, to adhere to the regulations, treat people with respect. And then I expect you to be treated with respect. I expect you to be talked to in a reasonable manner, and I'll do the same. And it just bothers me to no end when we go and we set folks up, because this is a setup for a disaster, man. It's a setup for a disaster when you give people too much leeway to violate the laws. It's just something that we can't do it. We cannot do it. All right, let's slide out. We'll come back. Speaking of things we can't do, what is a woman? So that's mercy. We're going to get Neil Rafferty in here in just a second. Talk to him about what has gone on in the Alabama House for the last few days. We'll be back in a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us Representative Neil Rafferty, representing the Birmingham area and in our state legislature, and he's been down now there for a couple of weeks into this thing, or a week and a day or so.
Week two. Week two.
Yeah, week two. And so there have been nothing but serious policy discussions on how to make things better for the Alabama. They have done nothing but God's work down there, and probably going to wrap it up early and get on out of there, because they're not going to fool around with any nonsense, or maybe I just haven't paid as much attention as I should, because that's actually completely untrue. And one of the reasons I wanted to get Neil on was because I watched the health committee hearing the other day, in which there was a bill for this third go around entitled "What is a Woman?" The What is a Woman Act. And I told David earlier, my editor over at APR, Bill Britt, said, shouldn't it be "Who is a Woman?" Which I think is a really good question, right?
That is.
Yeah. But so I watched your I don't want to say performance, because I think that undermines it, but your questioning of Susan DeBose. All right, that's who's carrying this thing, a woman. So we've defined it in some terms,
as far as we know, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And as long as that's what she says.
Was that tongue in cheek, Neil? Was that tongue?
Well, as long as she produced ova, you're right. That's apparently what we're reduced now to: sperm producers and ova producers. So,
yes, and it. I know Neil's joking a little bit, but this thing got down into the biology, which I was happy to see. Honestly, I guess, Matt, when you're in that room. And this is going on. Are you irritated?
No.
No?
It's not. Yeah, irritated is not the right word. It's more. It's more like slam your head against the wall. Yeah. It's like it is. What are we really trying to accomplish here? We have much bigger fish to fry. And we can't even. So, frustrated is the wrong word. It's more like. Yeah. I guess I stopped getting frustrated a long time with this position, because it's just, I just know what's going to happen. It's going to happen, and then I got to do my role is to poke holes and make sure that we're considering everything that we're going to be putting into statute, into black and white on the books here in Alabama. How that's going to affect everyday people and all those kinds of those important questions, and that's what I tend to stick to. So,
because to make it simple for everybody, this is stupid. It's a stupid bill. It's and I say that not being flippant, really. I say that in terms of biology and in terms of what they're trying to do here. It's a bill based in ignorance. Because it doesn't. And I guess I'm going to turn this over to you because what they just continue to say, oh, it's a simple thing. There's two genders, and then there are all these exceptions for these things that happen in biology naturally, and so what what are we doing? I guess why are we doing this?
You're asking me that? Well, why are we doing this?
I mean, why are what I guess what are they doing? I
What
don't
are they doing?
understand.
What are we doing? Why are we doing this? I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of hysteria around issues of I think what the right's called gender ideology. I think that there's been, ever since Trump won, I think there's been a lot of kind of even further push with the right because they think that this is kind of a winning issue for them. Because the thing is that there's a vacuum of kind of knowledge and information about this kind of issue. So they're filling in the gaps of knowledge and or the amount of people folks know and that kind with they're trying to fill in this vacuum of knowledge with their own kind of hysteria to create this outrage that then they can then use as blowback against Democrats. That's part of that's the part of the national strategy. When I first came down to the legislature, we started dealing with some of these issues that I had no idea or anticipation for back in 2018. It kind of caught me off guard because I thought we were kind of through with a lot of these kind of culture war issues. And then we saw this kind of the pendulum, this back, not pendulum. What am I trying to say here? We saw this reactionary kind of response to, everybody being included and being able to sit at the table.
Yes.
And they created an outrage out of that by, like I said, kind of filling that vacuum of information with a very loud, simple message that does not capture the nuance or diversity of the human experience. And that's kind of what they do, but that's messaging. That is why the right is really good at messaging, but then when it gets down to actual policy and what actually is going to happen here, it becomes a little bit more complicated. While they're kind of, I don't know. What am I trying to say?
No, listen, I know exactly what you mean.
I could go on and on and on about this kind of thing. So,
well, no, it's fine because I'm with you, and I think the messaging has been terrible. I don't understand why Democrats at some level have not produced a commercial or something with a transgender male playing women's sports because they're forced to play women's sports.
Right.
I don't understand it. I mean, and just and say, look, people are different. This is how we need to respect people and respect the process, and that because this is what so many people don't understand. I think because we always go to sports and how it's unfair to the women and women are being hurt and abused and things. I talked to the former executive director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Steve Savarese, who's a good friend of mine, and I like Steve a lot, and and he said, I said, this was back in the early days of this. I said, is this a problem? Is this something? And he said, I think in my entire time here we've had one case, and he said we just followed what the rules are, and I said, whoa, wait a minute, you got rules for this? And he said, yeah. He said, there's rules for testosterone testing and hormone testing, and the doctors come to us with what it is, and we just follow what they say. And that's what we did. And we did this. He said, I think it was in volleyball or something. And he said, nobody ever said a word. This was probably 5 or 6 years earlier. Everybody was happy. Nobody said a word. Nobody made a big deal out of it. And now we've pretended as though this is a huge issue. And not to mention, what kills me is there are people on the other side of this, human beings on the other side of this, that you're just belittling and demeaning every single day.
Well, I mean, I remember talking about that, a lot of these issues, and just saying these are cheap political points that you're getting off the back of an already kind of vulnerable population of people who are already kind of struggling to find their part and their place in society and their families and their communities. part of the problem is, I remember going on the Capitol Journal when a lot of this stuff was starting to kind of pop up back in the earlier days, and just saying, look, I don't think that the prevalence of this has changed. I think that it's just there's more visibility, and with more visibility comes, kind of this ability, this perception that it's a growing issue, that it's not, that it's something new, as opposed to something that is as old as time itself and has been around as long as humans have been around. Um, and like I said, then they found, oh, this is a good wedge issue, because what it does is it creates this, like I said, we can fill in not many people know folks who are part of this community, so we can start putting all these false facts out there, in order to start, you know, driving division, all in the name of demagoguery, blaming all these other issues on an already marginalized and vulnerable population of people here in the country.
It's pretty obvious, Neil, that this is, as you said, is political demagoguery. This is straight out of a Republican handbook, or I'll say, let me not say Republican. Let me say, more accurately, say a right-wing handbook that goes back several hundred years. I mean, it goes back to when the playbook was to demonize Black people and slaves, or to demonize indigenous people, or to demonize women. I mean, it seems as though right-wing people, right-wing leaders always need somebody to demonize in order to build their base of support. So now we're targeting a group of people, as Josh has alluded to, that probably only represents, maybe, if we're being generous, 1% to 2% of the population, if that. If
It's
that.
more like a fraction, right? I mean,
Yeah, if
you know what
that.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you got that. Then you also have the scientific and medical realities, which are, and I'm looking at something that a clinician posted on Facebook here, that was very, I think, adroitly spelled out. There are at least 8 different variations of anatomical and hormonal and chromosomal combinations that you can come up with, of people that consequently, defy our typical understanding of gender. So my question is, and it's rhetorical. Even though I want you to answer, it's really sort of rhetorical, because we already know the answer. Why in the devil is the Alabama legislature wasting time trying to define something that you guys aren't even medically qualified to define, scientifically, clinically qualified to define, that medical science already has explained for us in ways that would help us to understand that, as much as we might want things to be simple, they're simply not?
I don't know. The simple thing is, when you get down to ideology and and it becomes this purist kind of understanding of what that is. I mean, look at the pro-life movement. We've also seen that kind of in the same vein there, where, there's real serious clinical problems that have resulted as an outcome of this. But that's because we refuse to kind of understand the complexity of what it is, to give birth, and all the science around obstetrics and gynecology. And I think that this is just another one of those issues where, once again, without, studying biology for, near a decade, like a lot, like many folks who have come out who have PhDs in biology have been doing, they spend their whole careers trying to understand this kind of stuff. I think what really happens is, gender is really what our outward appearance is, how we present. I think that that's the simple thing that most folks can relate to. And I just think it's real silly when we're trying to then get into the biology to define how somebody expresses themselves, and what kind of clothes they wear, and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, look, let me get to the political aspect, which Josh also, I think, alluded to in some of his comments to you. It is a complicated issue. And I, like Josh, would like to see the Democratic Party and liberals, really attacking this. But to be honest with you, I also think it's almost, and I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, Neil, but I almost think it's a no-win proposition because it's such a complicated issue, because there is a lot of deeply ingrained fear, I think, in the hearts and minds of a lot of people about people who, as you said, present differently, love differently. That I don't know if there is an effective way to do it. And I know the general thought process is most of us straight guys don't even, straight white guys, straight black guys, we don't even touch the issue, most of us, because we don't want to be perceived as, soft or gay or whatever. So kudos to you, as a white gay man for standing up and speaking out on this. But what can the party do? What would you like to see the Alabama Democratic Party do to attack this issue in a way? And what do you think would be strategically, politically productive?
Those are big questions right there. I mean, so there's something that's very true that I've kind of noticed while I've been around is that, like I said, Republicans seem to be very good at messaging, less good at governing. Democrats are kind of the opposite, So what we're doing is, I think the Democrats kind of waited too late, because by the time their message was already out there and dominating, now we're on the defense, having to do a counter message to rehumanize this group of people that have become these political pawns to the Republicans. Um, I think what we really need to do is go back to the drawing board and make sure that that we're respecting everybody. That we have a declaration of principle that say that we respect everybody's right to individuality, to their dignity as a human being, and to respect that. And I think that's kind of been lost in the message here. And I think that's probably something that we really need to be focusing on. Um, you're right. It is difficult. Like I said, the problem is that there's just not that many transgender folks, right? So if they all came out, it just would not have the same impact as, say, if members of the LGBT community came out as opposed to LGBT. So
Well, I'll tell you this before I toss it back to Josh. I'm a Christian. I go to church and all that other stuff. And as I've said, I'm straight. But I've got some ideas about this. So if you ever want to sit down and talk, let's compare some notes and let's see what we can do, because the messaging needs to change. Well, first of all, there needs to be messaging.
that's it.
And
That's it right
and then
there.
it needs to be effective. And I've got some ideas on it. So let's sit down and talk one day.
Would love to. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really thought, I know this is a bit blasphemous at this point, but I really thought the Kamala Harris campaign, Harris-Walz campaign, hit on a pretty good strategy, which was, leave people the hell alone. Mind your own damn business.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something, that I think you would have to do a little more to expand it, to kind of show the silliness of this thing, but eventually get back around to the mind your own damn business and everybody be okay here, okay?
Right.
And so I really wish we could kind of get to that sort of messaging, and get away from some of this, because we do have, as you brought up earlier, you mentioned healthcare expansion, and I was going to ask you about that. There does not seem to be any real effort at this point to expand Medicaid. I know the governor's office has been very resistant to this because she claims that while we can build billion-dollar prisons, we can't expand Medicaid and help out the folks that fall in that gap. And now we're looking at just basically a piecemeal kind of a thing, it looks like. Where we do rural health care here, or whatever we could do, and maybe a public-private partnership. I know Blue Cross has pushed that, and I know that Alpha also apparently has some sort of healthcare plan that they're going to try to push. Yeah. But I think my question is this. I have been a proponent, as everybody knows, of finally legalizing and regulating gambling in this state and getting the revenue from it. Can we do any health care in this state without first legalizing gambling?
I think that we'd probably be able to pay for more healthcare and with less money if we were to expand Medicaid. Is that what your question is? Or are you saying that we
No,
need to have gambling in order
yeah.
to
Do we need to have
achieve?
gambling to be able to pay for whatever whether it be Medicaid expansion or it be any other kind of thing? Can we do any healthcare expansion without first passing gambling at this point?
Well, I don't. So that's a great question because if we want to look at the budgets and what's going on there, and
Yeah.
also what kind of is anticipated for the budgets in the coming years with the Choose Act and these kinds of things, we might
Huh.
be spending a lot of dang money.
Uh-huh.
And then it will be a question of, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now as far as what the budgets are going to look like. I think that, letting folks have the right to go out and vote and make a decision on if they want gaming and gambling and the lotto here in Alabama. And if we gave them that permission not gave them that permission, but if we gave them the opportunity and chance to express their,
Right.
to vote on that, then that would be certainly a case that we need to present as far as looking at the budgets. And, we want these things, we got to pay for them. So let's
Yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
we have the revenue to do so, as opposed to giving
Yeah.
that revenue to Georgia and Mississippi, right? So
Yeah. Listen, I think permission, that you used earlier, is a way a lot of people apparently look at this thing, and because it's, it is. I've never seen an issue in which the poll after poll after poll says 80 to 90% of the voters
on
say,
both
"Hey,
sides
man,
of the aisle too.
yeah,
On both
I want a
sides.
chance to vote on this. Who are
Right.
you to deny me?" And they continue to deny 'em.
Hmm.
But no, it just and I think too that the thing that needs to be separated out among a lot of people is whether this idea that you're pro gambling or not. I'm not necessarily pro gambling.
I don't like
I'm
gambling.
pro regulated gambling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
what I am.
and that's what we need. I mean, the regulations where you make sure it's fair, ethical,
Yes.
that they're not getting involved in organized crime, which is a consideration here. All of these kinds of things, if we were allowed to set up, legal gambling and make sure that we're, good to go,
Yes.
with proper oversight and proper revenue functions that would pay for itself. It's not even expanding the role of government in this way,
That's
because what you would
exactly.
be doing is paying for itself through the revenue that's generated through that.
Yeah.
So so let's give people the opportunity. I mean,
Yeah,
that's where I am. So
I've never seen a piece of legislation in which they say, "Hey, if we pass this, we're going to get $1 billion a year and create 12 to 15,000 jobs. And oh, by the way, we don't have to give out any economic incentives to anybody." And everybody's like, "Well, I don't know if we want to do that or not." I mean, and oh, by the way, we're already doing it in the state. We're just not making any
exactly.
money off of it.
Right.
Well, hey, man, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate what you've done. Your questions and things at the health committee meeting, and I know that ultimately the end of this thing was not what any of us wanted. But I think you made a lot of people think about this stuff. You imparted some knowledge on some people that desperately needed it, even if they can't fully understand it, including the bill sponsor. And I just having you there, having other Democrats and other folks like you there, it means a lot, I think, and we've got to figure out a way to get the messaging right and get some more of you up there to help you out.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be on here. Thanks for having me on and give me a chance to kind of expand upon what transpired yesterday and today. Really do appreciate
Yeah.
that too.
Keep fighting the good
Absolutely.
fight, Neil.
Oh,
Yes,
you
sir.
know it. You know it.
All right.
man.
All right,
Hey,
we'll
that
be in
is
touch.
thank you, Neil. As the Representative Neil Rafferty, he did it. You cannot do it better than he did. It was respectful. It was pointed, and it was very smart. And just watching the performance and the whole thing, man, I keep saying performance. This is not a performance. This is because there's it makes it seem like this was like it was an act of some sort. I don't want to give that impression at all. I just mean that watching him do that there, this is how everybody should attack these things, with knowledge and with facts and how you go about it. And it just kind of turned them inside out on that, on that panel. And I think some people have changed their minds about this thing, and hopefully this thing dies the same death it has died the last 2 years. So, all right, let's slide out of here. We'll be back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a minute. All right, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. I appreciate our friends over at Wind Creek, our folks at Southern Poverty Law Center, and all the people that support us and watch and leave ratings. Yeah, leave a rating and review anywhere you get this podcast from. We really do appreciate it. I get a ton of calls and stuff from folks doing. I'm always surprised by some of the people who listen. And it always takes you back, because when we're sitting here doing these things and I'm saying some crazy shit or something, and then somebody will later say, "Hey, listen, I've listened to the podcast," and I was like, "Oh, damn! I hope you didn't hear X part," But listen, most of these folks, they know me, and so they know that I'll say I say some crazy things from time to time, and they know that all we're looking for here is to try to make the place better, and we want people to do better, and for the most part, I know David doesn't hate anybody, and then I don't know that I necessarily hate anyone, but I do really dislike. I loathe one particular person of an orange tint, and but otherwise, not so many.
Yeah, of course, I have, I've been praying about this as we church-going people try to do, at least some of us try to do. And so I don't hate Trump, but I sure do dislike what he stands for and what he's done. And I can say I'm perpetually pissed off at him. Now, if he was stranded by the side of a road and needed a jump, I would certainly get out of my car and help him. And that's kind of my standard. I try to think of, if somebody's in need, would you help them? And if you can say you can, no matter what they say or do or how they think, then I think that's an indication that you can love them, in the way that Dr. King talks about and the Bible talks about. But if I'm struggling with that, then I know I need to give it some more reflection,
Yeah, I'm almost to the point where with Trump, I would try to hit the puddle that splashed him as he was standing there. It's just done too much to too many people, man. I mean,
he's hurt people. He's hurt people.
He's done it intentionally, and he's done it cavalierly, and he's done it without care, and all in an interest of self-enrichment and to soothe his own ego.
And pride, self-enrichment and pride, man. Because you could really argue during COVID, you could kind of argue that he killed people, or certainly allowed people to die. Based on, his knowledge of what was going on and his refusal to advocate for, addressing the problem in a productive way,
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree. And that reminded me of two things. You get the little Facebook memories that come up. One of them was Trump and I posted a video of Trump's press conference from around this time, back at the start of COVID, in which he was going through and telling people that we've got 11 or 12 cases. Most people say that by April, that the heat's going to come and kill the virus and everything's going to be fine. We only have those 11 or 12 cases, and those people, they're doing much better, going to be okay, I think. And this was his message to people. This was how he was dealing with this at that particular time, and that did not pan out quite right. Also, another one that popped up this week was, we've been doing this thing 5 years.
Wow, has it been 5 years?
It has. Yeah.
Okay.
We got that. We got those photos made. Remember doing those photos?
Yeah,
And this was the
I do.
week that Chip put together the little graphic for us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. 5 years, man.
I'd
5
lost
years.
track. Okay.
Yeah. I know. It's time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, man.
It's
Yeah.
it has been very enjoyable. I look forward to doing this every single week. I really do. I
It's a
would
bright spot.
probably do it if nobody was paying me.
Mhm.
But the pay's nice.
Yeah, it's good to be paid.
Yeah, yeah. For a while there, I wasn't. So I know it's.
Yeah,
When we first started this thing, it was. I made sure that everybody else got paid, but there was a few weeks in there when we were trying to get this thing off the ground that I didn't, and I think some other folks didn't as well. And and so look, we've got it straightened out now.
Yeah.
We really appreciate our folks at Wind Creek for doing what they do, and at SPLC for doing what they do, and it's been nice.
Well, let me just say, you have been our fearless leader, and I know you always say, "Oh, this is your podcast too," and that's true.
Yeah.
But you are the captain of the team. You're the captain
Right.
of the team, and I think you have done a tremendous job in being the captain of this team. You've made it easy to work with you and on the air. It's not on the air technically because it's not a broadcast, but you know what I mean.
Right. Right.
You
I know,
made
yeah.
it easy to work with you doing the podcast, and you've definitely looked out for me. I know you've looked out for our producer in New York, and I want to commend you for that and thank you for that, brother. And
Yeah, man.
let's keep doing this thing as long as we can, as long as we can do it.
No, well, we're going to, and I appreciate you saying all that. I was, it's my goal there for a long time was just to keep you from leaving. I know you had those big friends in Hollywood that you kept running off to, and I was trying to keep you from leaving. So I kept giving David more and more money. He's like, "Here, man, take it all, take it. I don't care." But
I'm here,
it has
brother.
been.
I'm here.
It has been fun. Has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And all right, so we've got a right wing nut, which
Yeah.
you won't believe. It was astonishing to me when I saw this. And I've been around the Alabama politics game a long time. It takes a lot to surprise me. This one surprised me. But before we get into that, something else that was just weird as hell was this press conference by Trump and Elon Musk that went down. This was Tuesday, or we record on Wednesdays. This thing went down on Tuesday, and dude, that's the weirdest, awkwardest Oval Office press conference that I have ever seen. I can't. Just the optics of it with
So
you've got
bizarre.
the president sitting at his desk.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Elon Musk standing beside him, dressed in something.
I was trying to figure that out. What message is he sending with that outfit? That was weird.
Yeah, and he's got his toddler running around at his feet
Yeah.
and on his shoulders for a period of time. And look, I've got a youngin', and I like to carry her around a lot of places. But this was, it's a press event where they were asking serious questions of this man who's running like Sherman through our federal government at this point,
Right.
torching things, and his toddler's all around the place and kind of yelling and doing whatever.
The kid being a kid,
Yeah,
Though
and
I
not-
think he clearly needs some discipline, but okay, kid being a kid.
And then you've got the president just sitting quietly to the side over here, just
Trump,
mean-
you know what I said to you earlier, and I'm gonna say it again. Trump looked like he'd been neutered. He looked like he had been, emasculated, neutered, castrated, whatever term you want to use, and he was just sitting there docilely,
Yeah.
and he would periodically say, "Well, Elon, maybe you should ask." Say something about this. And I remember early on in the press conference, because I couldn't look at too much of it because it was just too surreally bizarre. Trump actually suggested that he talk about some weird situation where somebody had accrued $30 million, which I suspect is a lie. But,
Yes.
nonetheless, some government employee had mysteriously accrued $30 million. But Elon Musk never addressed it. He never addressed what Trump was talking about. He talked about everything else under the sun. And
was so
and Trump just
strange.
sat there docilely, periodically looking away. It looked like sometimes he was looking at Elon's kid off camera doing whatever the kid was doing. It was just so weird, Josh.
Yes, I mean it was like something out of a movie
Yeah.
in which in which there's been some weird takeover of government by people, and they're holding a press conference, and the guy that's really in charge is standing up and talking while the co-president,
That's it.
the assistant to the president, sits over, like Dwight Schrute from The Office, the assistant to the president over here. It just sits to the side and occasionally offers up suggestions or things. And man, the idea that American people would be okay with, first of all, any billionaire going, unelected billionaire running through our federal government and collecting data and personal information and things like that, that Musk is collecting, like as he is, with this team of 19 and 20-year-olds, one of them named Big Balls, apparently.
One of them,
And they would be okay with this, much less this guy who is, was not born in this country. Very well could have been here illegally for a period of time, and is why?
And
I don't understand why we trust this. I don't.
It has
I don't
clear
understand it.
conflicts of interest.
Clearly,
I mean, this is somebody who has contracts with the federal government in the hundreds of millions of dollars between SpaceX and whatever else he's got going on.
Yeah, he's got $36 billion worth of contracts. Yeah.
Oh, is it 36 billion? Okay,
yes.
$36 billion in contracts,
through Tesla and SpaceX and all the other things that he does. Yeah, there's like $36 billion worth of contracts.
And so how in the world do we justify, how does Trump justify this guy having that kind of access when he's got $36 billion of a conflict of interest? I mean,
David, we're way past justifications.
Well, I think the answer clearly is, as people have said, Musk has Trump by the balls. He's got him by the balls. Whether it's because of the hundreds of millions of dollars he put into Trump's campaign, or whatever backdoor deals they have structured, or because he's got something else on Trump. But what we saw with that press conference was absolutely unprecedented.
Well, this is what I want people to really consider, okay, is do you honestly believe that this person who is running two successful businesses, right, with a lot of demands on their time, and already very well off, do you really believe that this person is going through here and doing this job out of the goodness of his heart? You know what I mean? I'm
with you, man. I'm with you. Yeah.
Do you honestly, and that's what I would like for people to answer. Do you really believe that there is nothing to be gained by this man personally, that for him doing the job that he's currently doing, or do you suspect, as I do, that this data and all the things that he's mining out of these all of these different sources and throughout the government is being collected and is going to be used by him, and is essentially he's been given the keys to a gold mine because of the business that he's in?
Absolutely. Yeah. He's been given the keys to Fort Knox.
Yep. And I think that is, I think that he's been able to, I think he's going to be able to cancel. I mean, this is the other thing about it is he doesn't have to give himself a contract. He could go in and say, look, he's already lied numerous times about what these things, these expenditures within the Treasury Department, what they are. And some of them because he genuinely does not understand it. And listen, I don't expect him to, but he doesn't understand it. And he's canceling out things that are very important to people. And because he doesn't understand it, and he's misconstruing it. And he got some people fired from FEMA the other day because he didn't understand an expenditure about housing and illegal immigration. And it was just, wait, what the fuck are we doing? And and there's a big ass headline on Fox or whatever. That's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. All right. And you got these 4 people fired over this. And it's all because he doesn't understand. But at the same time, let's say SpaceX would like to get into a business of building a certain type of rocket. And there is a contract with Boeing for building that certain type of rocket. Why, what is stopping Elon Musk from saying, look at the amount of money we're wasting on these Boeing people over here. We've got to cancel that immediately. Canceled. And then all of a sudden, next week, SpaceX gets a brand new contract out of this thing. That's the sort of thing where when they're talking about the transparency, and he's like, "Whoa, this transparency is the best way to go about it." That's what ensures everything. We're just very transparent in everything that we do. You can see it. We post everything. We post everything on the Doge feed on X. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Post everything on there. You control all of that.
Right. And I was going to
This is so stupid.
I was going to say, government via social media is not only bad policy. It's it's something that really just puts the nation further at risk because, first of all of us aren't even on X.
No.
In fact, many people, I'm not on X. I haven't been on X or Twitter for years, and many people have left it. So if you're telling us that the only way we're going to get crucial information is by, participating in your business, well, how democratic is that?
Yeah.
Not at all.
I left out of there. It became a cesspool after he took over, and it was just every single post that anybody would make that from especially if you were a left leaning person or progressive or hell just not a hard right winger. Every single post that you would make would just be inundated with horseshit. I would even then. So I cut all the stuff off. I didn't see anybody's messages or responses and stuff. I never saw that, but what they further did was they depressed the amount of reach that you would have when you posted links. And when that happened, I was like, hell, I had 30,000 or so followers on that thing. And, I would post, a question like, hey, is it sunny outside? And, it would get, 40,000 views or whatever within a few hours. I would post a link to a column that I wrote and it would get 150 in 3 days, and so at that point I'm like, well, fuck this. I'm out of this. So, and it just, the whole thing is, it's so ludicrous and it's hurting real people. And an example of what we were talking about, before we, came back for this segment is the NIH funding that is going to cripple the cutting of that NIH funding, which is research funding that goes to institutions around the country. Some of the biggest goes to the state of Alabama and the University of Alabama and the University of Alabama's healthcare systems. And it props up some of the most important and consequential research into cancers and into all sorts of health issues. It allowed and helped us develop the COVID vaccine. For a large part, we've had the doctors on at UAB that led to that.
And here in Huntsville, you've got not only of course we got UAB in Birmingham, but here in Huntsville you've got the University of Alabama Huntsville, and you've got Hudson Alpha that are being affected by this potentially as well. So
it's just what's troubling. All right, so. This is the argument that you get into, and man, Republicans are so good at this. All right, they are so good at this messaging thing because they have, and I think it's because they're dumb themselves in a lot of ways, and so they automatically land on the easiest to understand message, and so government is bad. Government is bad and wasteful, and we all know it, right? And that's the message. And so now we've got somebody going in and cleaning up government. We're stopping all this stuff. And then you've got somebody coming out and telling these fantastical stories about all this waste that they're uncovering of these people that are just robbing us blind from these things. And we're paying for X, Y, and Z in these foreign countries through the USAID deal. And almost all of those stories are erroneous. Almost all of them are bad. All right. And even the ones that are true have been misconstrued to a degree in which it's made what were good projects into something nefarious. Okay. And it's just, It's such horseshit. And so now you've just got them believing, oh, they're going through and doing this. Well, the problem is that while government can sometimes be wasteful, and there can sometimes be fraud in government. And trust me, I've rooted out a lot of it over the course of my life, and exposed quite a few people who were bad actors and who've done a lot. Overall, what people need to understand is government is people, and most government, no, even these projects that end up being wasteful, almost all of them start out with very good intentions. And they start out with a focus on people and on projects that are needed in communities for whatever reason. And it's like the NIH funding. Maybe there's some bloat in NIH funding. Maybe there's a doctor or two who are getting payments who shouldn't be getting payments anymore. Okay. But the overwhelming majority, 98%, I would venture to say, are necessary payments that are going to people to support research that's doing good things, and by people who are genuinely good stewards of the money. And now you've just castigated all those people and essentially named them as frauds, and you've got this idiot running roughshod through the place over there with his team of teenagers that have no real understanding or concept of what these things mean.
Yeah.
And locking people out and killing the Department of Education, by the way.
Yeah, and making a lot of, and the other thing I noticed yesterday too, is that he was just making a lot of wild accusations. No substantiation, no proof, just us up there just kind of, improvising, just winging it, just saying stuff,
Yeah, and he's been doing that. They've been doing that. And here's the thing. It's on a lot of levels, it's genius, because you keep this sort of narrative of, oh, the government is bad and there has been so much waste and there's been so many things. And I'd like to point out to people too, okay, that didn't the guy that was sitting at the desk, am I nuts, or was he not president for 4 years?
Exactly.
So all of this waste and this craziness went on for 4 years while he was president. What the hell was he doing?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's often forgotten. And I'm going to push back on one thing you said. You said genius. I think you forgot a word: evil genius.
Yeah. It is. It is evil genius. It is, because they just keep pushing that narrative, though, and they just keep feeding into it. And I think I mentioned last week, I listened to the guys on the Pod Save America podcast, and they were talking about, one of the things they talked about was this condom story, the condoms going to Gaza. And that was because it had resonated with people, and people had picked it up and shared the story about this. And it's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. And it wasn't this, it was going towards an AIDS effort that we were involved in it, and we had committed to, and has been successful. It has been successful.
And it may have been the one that was launched, speaking of, George W. Bush, it may have been part of the one that he launched, part of the initiative that he launched when he was in the White House.
Yeah. That's another good point, because several of these programs that they're talking about on here were started under Trump. They were started under Trump, and he backed the funding and signed off on the funding. And it's just to listen to these people, and it's the idiocy of some of this is amazing. But again, it all fits into this narrative of government bad, government wasteful. We're killing government. And these people, if you think these people are doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, you're nuts. You're nuts. They're not doing this to save the country. They're doing this for their personal gain. You can bet on it. These people, and the reason I know this is these people have never done a single thing for the good of the country. Never, ever. And why would you believe it now? It's astonishing to me. It was, speaking of ridiculous, fantastical claims, our own Adele Strong made some this week.
Oh, about NPR. Yeah.
Yes.
Mouthpiece
of the
Dale
left,
Strong, right? Saying that NPR is just a leftist liberal organization, and they need to cut their government funding. And of course, NPR, has never been a right wing outlet, but it has certainly, I think, done a very credible, more than respectable job of presenting straight news along with, coverage of the arts and also being a place where you could hear divergent voices, not just one type of person representing one type of way of one type of worldview. So I guess that's what pisses people off. But you know what? The problem Dale Strong is going to have, even if he is successful here, is that, Alabamians, plenty of Alabamians, across ideological lines from what I've seen, and I can say this as somebody who used to work, my first professional radio job was with an NPR affiliate. And so from what I could see, going back to the mid to late 1980s and on, is that there are plenty of people across the political spectrum who appreciate public radio and who value what NPR does. So, I think he may come up on the losing end here in the long run, because for many people it's their main source for classical music, for jazz, and for artsy kinds of programs. So Dale Strong may end up living to regret this.
It's so stupid. It really is. It just I hate to keep using the word stupid, but it is. It's aspiring to be stupid. And that's what bothers me about this. Dale Strong's not a stupid person. He's not. He's not a dumb person. But he's aspiring to be stupid, and that's what he's aspiring to impress the idiots, and that irritates me almost more than somebody who naturally is stupid. All right, and when you aspire to be stupid, and this is one of those things, and it just, I hate that we have to put this into categories of not a right-wing news outlet and not it's just a news outlet. That's all it is. They do news, and it's not. They ask people questions. And are most of the people there probably progressives or left-leaning or whatever? Maybe, but hell, you'd be hard-pressed to get into any newsroom outside of Fox or Newsmax where most of the people, I bet most of the people in those are too, because let me tell you, it's very hard to find a lot of people with college degrees that aren't progressive and left-leaning, all right? And that's what most of these folks are. And it's just, but when you listen to what's on those stations, what would make you jump to this idea that these are mouthpieces of the left? I mean, it's just
there's probably really and I know we got to get out of here soon, but there's probably really only one show that I can think of that's on NPR that is consistently sympathetic to what you call liberal or left-wing ideas, and that's Fresh Air, where Terry Gross does some fascinating interviews with a lot of different people. But she definitely displays, I think, a sympathy to the left, to left-wing ideology. And maybe to some degree there's another show called On the Media that may do that as well. But you're talking about two nationally distributed shows out of a whole slate of programming. I mean, it's just, it is, there's been times where, I've taken some issue with some of their work, but, I think that's true with all news organizations, but I would say for the most part, they're about as balanced as you can be. And listen, because they ask people questions and the answers aren't what you want them to be, doesn't mean they're left leaning. That means that the reality is not something that you want it to be. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's the problem that Dale Strong has with NPR, is that NPR exposes the fact that he's full of shit on most of the things that he's talking about. All right. I mean, and he has no factual basis for a lot of things that he says. And so, and even on those, I think that he says them because Dale Strong is aspiring to be stupid on those particular issues, because it gets him elected and furthers his career. And this is another example of that. All right. Right-wing nut time. and let me pull up what we got here because there was a bill introduced this week in the Alabama legislature. I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, Tuesday, when this bill landed, and it touches on a very, very important issue for the state and for the country, really. And so I'll just read what the bill says itself here. Under existing law, this is the synopsis of the bill. Okay, officially filed. It's on record. It's there. You can find it. Under existing law, certain measures are provided to maintain and improve air quality in this state. This bill would prohibit the dispersion of items into the atmosphere with the intention of affecting the weather. Relating to atmosphere, to prohibit the dispersion of items intended to affect the weather within or above this state. No person may knowingly inject, release, or disperse by any means any chemical compound, substance, or apparatus within or above this state for the purpose of affecting weather, including the temperature or intensity of sunlight. So listen, that bill is sponsored by Mac Butler. He's got some other co-sponsors on this thing. So Chris Sells, this cat from Trinity over here. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but he's a co-sponsor on it as well. Eddie Yarborough. Yeah. So
because this was such a pressing issue. Well, first of all, is it even a real issue?
Listen, David, the Democrats have been controlling the weather. Did you not know this about Marjorie Taylor Greene made it? They made this expose this conspiracy of when the Democrats forced the floods on North Carolina to shut down the elections.
Right, because she's so credible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they've been doing this for a long time. They've been controlling the weather. That's just the way that it is. That they're propping up climate change. That's the reason why we have climate change is because of the Democrats controlling the weather. So we're going to stop that in the state of Alabama.
Save us from the idiots. Save us from the idiotic legislation, please. This is crazy.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. And meanwhile, hospitals are struggling to stay open, including in Montgomery. Jackson Hospital there, having some financial issues. Children are still, in many cases, not getting the high-quality education that they need. Women are in need of prenatal care. Lots of things. Marilyn Lance has put forth a great bill trying to ensure that poor women can get the prenatal care they need. God bless her for that. But now we're gonna see that the bill about inserting things into the atmosphere to control the weather, we're gonna make sure that gets priority. What in the crazy madness is that?
I don't, man. I'm just about to give up on people. I really am. All right. Let's get out of
Jesus,
here.
help us.
On that high or lowest of low notes, let's get ourselves out of here. Until next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.